Welcome, everyone, to the Dynasty Gambit, part of Going for Two Live. I almost said the name of the other episode, but yes, we are on the Dynasty Gambit here. No Hamid this week, so I am the one that's introducing the show. Kyle Senra here, at Senra Says, and joined by one of my co-hosts, Dr. James Ferretti, the Fantasy Sports Doc. How you doing, Doc?
Kyle, how are you? It's nice to be coming to you stationary, not in a car. But the doctor is not in his car, in his office again. Seems like with the Dynasty Gambit, the only thing that's constant is change. But it keeps us on our toes, keeps us rolling with the punches. So yeah, it's me and you again. We joined maybe by a special guest later on. But I guess maybe we'll have to keep people on their toes, have them stay tuned for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, really, Dynasty is all about adapting, right? And adapting to change. So, we just found out, a couple hours ago that Hamid wouldn't be able to be on the show. A birth in the family, kind of unexpected, a little early. So he's off supporting his brother and, new addition to the family. So all the love and support there. One more announcement, too, is Dynasty Gambit will now be a weekly show. So we're going to be coming to you every Thursday during the offseason. Yeah, we're going to keep it rolling, nonstop, always moving. Although in the office usually, not always moving in the car. But when it happens, we made it work last week, right? So that's all fine and dandy. Yeah, I think the internet connection will be more consistent again, unlike the changing of who's on the show or not.
We hope.
But yeah, so enough about us again. Happy everyone's listening, watching, showing up. So appreciate that. We'll get to any questions that do pop up. For now, there are a couple of topics that we would like to cover. I think the primary one, actually really all three, well, certainly two of them are based off of recent news. I would say more so, people making comments, coaching staffs making comments, some coaching staffs making telling us everything with their actions. But we'll start in Chicago. And, Matt Nagy has said quite a few things this offseason, and that staff has been mentioned. Apparently, recently, there's been some talk about David Montgomery, and the expectations are that he can improve upon the rushing numbers that he had last season. And I think our question for Dynasty fantasy purposes is really centered around David Montgomery as a buy, sell, or hold. So in Dynasty, what are we doing with David Montgomery? Right now, it seems that he finished as a top 10 running back last year. I think he might even been top 5, but certainly not. Yeah, I want to say running back 4 last year
depending on your format, I think he was in the top 5.
Yeah, I think in most formats, the only ones that outscored him were Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. If you're looking at per game basis, Christian McCaffrey was a beast per game. But anyway, so Montgomery, two seasons so far, and he's gotten over 240 carries. Much more efficient. 242 carries for 889 yards in 2019, but 247, so only 5 more carries, but with 1,070 yards, almost 200 more. And 2 additional touchdowns. But really last season, what was big was the receiving work. 35 targets in 2019, 68 targets in 2020. So it looks like based on his workload, he's going to get close to 250 carries again. If he's around the 4 yards a carry, it should be another 1,000-yard season for him. But I guess really the big question on the buy, sell, hold is probably, do we think he's going to repeat that? I think that accounts for a lot of fantasy production there. So, Doc, what are you thinking about David Montgomery in 2021?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, I guess one of the things I think about when coaches start talking, especially when nothing else is going on, is like, what's his, a couple things. Like, number one, like, what's his motivation for kind of coming up with this out of nowhere? Like, nobody was asking. And he just kind of like created the question and answered it himself. And then number two is, do we really buy it? At face value, it's like we hear a lot of these things coming out of training camp and, OTAs and things like that. And it's like, do we buy it? And I think that's important because sometimes like there's narratives created by coaching staffs and front offices and players that may not accurately reflect reality. And there's other motivations for that. So, I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole we want to go on this. But I guess I'll just say that and I can elaborate on this as we talk about it. My feeling at face value is I don't buy it. Like I don't think it's accurate for a multitude of reasons.
Well, let's get another voice in here. So, Gerson Aguirre, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Guest we've had on before. Someone, last minute decide to help us out here. So, Gerson, we are talking about David Montgomery right now. So, you could answer the first question of how are you doing, but also talk about maybe your expectations for Montgomery in this upcoming season.
Welcome, G.
I'm doing pretty good. You guys can hear me, right? Because I'm on my phone right now. I'm loading up my computer, but I'm doing pretty good. Just got off work like at 4:55, ran down here as fast as I could. But luckily, I'm only working half a mile away. I like David Montgomery. I mean, everybody's saying, Tariq Cohen coming back, Damian Williams is there. But I just think Montgomery is way more talented than those guys. And they realized last year, he can be the guy, And I think they're just going to – I believe in that quote. And I don't know about Dynasty, though, because I usually try to sell my running back after 4 years out, and he kind of falls into that category. And we don't know his contract situation, where he's going to go, kind of remind me of like James Conner. You remember when he had a big year, and now look at him now. I'm not saying I don't think Montgomery is one of those elite running backs that's going to give you 6 to 7 years,
So you're saying is the sell window for Montgomery might be while he's still on this rookie contract. I mean, maybe that Chicago doesn't want to pay him. They've been doing that, right? They've been drafting these mid-round range guys, giving them a bunch of carries. And there's fear that if Montgomery isn't like a true difference maker, they'll just look to replace him.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. I mean, that's perfectly correct.
So you basically have about 2 seasons to sell him at this kind of peak, assuming that second contract, because not a first round pick. So the Bears don't have the 5th year option. So this will be year 3. So after the 2022 season, he'll be a free agent and at the whims of what the market values him as, right? No other NFL team might value him as a starter. There's a chance the Bears don't, but someone else does, willing to pay him. But there's that risk for sure. So I think you almost kind of pointed out the question, which is at the crux of this is a buy, sell, or hold for Dynasty. So it seems like you're firmly planted in sell, maybe not even immediately, but at least within the next year.
I would sell, but also, not cheap. I'd make sure I get a good return on him. A lot of people always, when they hear sell in a player, they think like panic, time to sell. No, sell and see what the value you're going to get in return. Don't just sell it for oh yeah, here's a second rounder, or a first rounder. If it's a first rounder, it better be a great crappy team that's giving you that first rounder,
Super flex first, that changes it a little bit. You could accept a mid first in super flex to maybe get an elite running back, but if it's single quarterback, you definitely want to make sure that's at the top half of the first round. I am looking at the Bears' targets last year, and again, Montgomery had 68, but 2 players that had more than him that I don't know will maintain at. Anthony Miller had 76, and so did Jimmy Graham. Darnell Mooney actually had 98. I was a little surprised by that. So, it seems like Robinson, Mooney probably going to be the top 2 targets, but I mean, Miller and Graham may not maintain that. Cole Kmet only had 44. Maybe he and Graham switch, but I can see Anthony Miller is really falling out of favor. And, I think Tariq Cohen's expected return may not eat all of Montgomery's targets either.
Yeah.
He might end up with 50 targets. I think that's maybe a little bit less than last year, but more than his rookie season.
The thing is, I think everybody's on the whole Darnell Mooney breakout train, right? I think Cole Kmet is going to break out too. I don't have Cole Kmet as a top. I believe I don't have him as a top 12. I still think he has work to do. And the quarterback situation, if we're going to roll out Andy Dalton, let's be honest, I'm not all excited. Maybe Justin Field, but the targets, that defense is still pretty decent. So I think they're going to do just the run game, But for targets and whatnot, I think it's going to be evenly distributed between Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and Montgomery. But I just think Montgomery last year he really did come out and prove that the pressure was on too from the beginning of the year. Everybody was iffy about him. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and switch to my computer. So I'll get right back to you guys.
All right. So, my quick, I guess, takeaway on the buy, sell, hold. Again, it really all depends on price. Just try to pull up a startup draft I did recently. And again, there's 2 tight ends in this, so more than the conventional. But in that league, actually, he went right ahead of Cole Kmet, but Dave Montgomery went 606. So into the 6th round, I think if you get a running back that's going to get 250 carries at that price, I think I'm buying.
Yeah,
so
that's really good value. And that's the thing. He's kind of in that area in some of these drafts, like kind of like with Josh Jacobs. I've seen him in just like best ball drafts now. And, even like you said, dynasty startups, like he's going later than maybe he should. But when we talked about him, it was like a month and a half ago, before this narrative kind of got played, like he was a sell at that point, because what people I think are discounting, and not to fly in the face of anybody's argument, but he kind of had the perfect storm last year. Like all the other running backs were either non-existent or they got hurt. He had a really good schedule defensive wise down the stretch. There wasn't as much kind of the Bears offense is like, all these breakouts are supposed to come from the Bears. It's like, is this offense really going to sustain a breakout from Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and have David Montgomery exceed what he did last year in kind of like a perfect storm situation? Like, I don't know about that. And as far as talent, he's a talented guy for sure, but let's not completely discount Damian Williams. I mean, his stock was sky high at the end of 2019. After he played in the Super Bowl, over 100 yards, a touchdown, another receiving touchdown. I mean, if it wasn't for like a QB bias, he had a legitimate chance to be the Super Bowl MVP. It wasn't like he got hit by a bus. He opted out because of COVID and kind of recency bias, like he's fallen out of favor, but he's there and he's not non-existent. David Montgomery played over 800 snaps last year, and he didn't get hurt, which is always a risk. So there's a lot of factors that are in play that could very easily, any one of those things could happen and he could underperform what he did last year. So, kind of taking a perfect situation and then saying, okay, this year we're going to take that perfect situation and make it better. I don't know about that. So, selling, you might be able to get more than you could 6 weeks ago. And if that's the case, then I think that's even more of an argument to sell higher.
That's fair. So Gerson, where have you been seeing him go in drafts or just trades? Any type of price
range? I think I saw a trade on Twitter, and it got me thinking, like David Montgomery for the 105, 106, and I'm like, I would take that in a heartbeat. But then I started thinking about it. Najee Harris. This was, I believe, it was a non-super flex. Najee Harris would go number 1. Travis Etienne maybe number 2, but people love Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitt. So let's say Kyle Pitt, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase. So you'd be looking maybe either, let's say Kyle Pitt at 5 or whatever. Javonte Williams, actually.
Javonte Williams.
And Rondell Bateman Bateman and him. So like Javonte Williams, Montgomery, like, okay, so you're just eliminating 2 years of use maybe, and that's it. Okay, that makes sense. But I'm more of it depends on the team situation. Yeah. Like your own current team. So like if you're a team that you're like playoff fringe, you might actually miss the playoff. You better be selling them, and you better be getting a good return to build for your future. If you're a championship team, well, of course, you're gonna go out and try to buy him. You're gonna go out and buy him because I think a player. I always say running back. You can never have too many running backs. So and running backs get hurt a ton. This year is the year where I was like the hardest in my rankings. I couldn't figure it out, and I talked to Ryan Searfoss, and we were like scratching our head, like, well, the running back is just crazy. It's all over the place. You don't know who the top 12 are with 100% confident.
Yeah, 10 through 11 all the way maybe down to like 22 is all a big mishmash, and I definitely agree that I definitely sympathize. So as I was saying, just when you logged off briefly, I did a startup recently, and Montgomery went in the middle of the 6th round. It is a 2 tight end league, so like Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews went ahead of him. So for conventional scoring, maybe say a back end of the 5th. But I still think for a running back that's going to get likely close to 250 carries, I think that's a pretty good price. So I think that's the thing is, again, while he was a top 4 running back last year, no one has valued him as a top 4 running back. It's been clear that everyone doesn't expect him to repeat that, but his price has never reflected it. So I'm still kind of on the buy, I think. Yeah, but like you said, Gerson, if you're rebuilding,
that's what I've been thinking about. Like, because he's been going low, and now that this kind of narrative is coming to play, like, are we going to start to see him move up, and then maybe you're out? Like it's not as strong of a buy anymore.
This is the sell window here, yeah, maybe.
One of the things Doc said was that he had an easy run schedule last year, or he had an easy schedule. True, 100% true. But this year he had the 7th easiest schedule, so based on metrics. But the other thing is his ADP is that 5th round. So right away, when I think of a running back that was top 10 the year before, and he's going into the 5th round, I think 0 running back strategy. I think, okay, let me get my wide receivers. Let me get Kittle or Kelsey. Let me see what I try to build that 0 running back strategy. I know, I get it. Some people don't like doing 0 running back.
Hey, listen, I love 0 RB. It's like when people that are poker players, it's like when you go all in, it works every time until it doesn't work, right? But there are times when it lines up, ADP and players getting drafted, that it really does work well. And he's definitely one of those guys that I'd be targeting at that type of price. The question is the price going to move? Because we're only in June.
Yeah.
So, depending on when you draft, it might be a completely different story.
Well, speaking of different story, we're going to switch to a different player, rookie this time, and not so much that things have been said about him, although the team has been talking positively, but it's their actions. So Mac Jones has been getting a lot of work with the starters. Now Cam Newton is nursing injury, so he isn't there. So it's not as if Jones is getting all this just ahead of Newton automatically. But the fact that it seems like he's going to be given opportunities to succeed. What's our thinking of if and when he'll start this season?
I think he'll start mid-season. I mean, not right away though. Bill Belichick, he doesn't like rookie players, period. I mean, it doesn't matter where he drafts them. He just doesn't play them a lot from the beginning and get go. I can't remember the last rookie player that started out with like full reps. Maybe Aaron Hernandez. But it's because they were running that 2 tight end set, But none of the running backs ever done it. And I always say this: I guess people say the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. I don't think he's gonna start a rookie week 1. I think he's gonna go in with Cam Newton. He's been praising Cam Newton all season too, all the off season too, saying that he looks better and this and that. I'm not a Cam Newton guy, so I'm passing on him, but. With Mac Jones' value, I would draft him as after Wilson in a superflex. But the thing is, like, I think he's going top 15, top 17 pick, maybe. Like in a superflex, is that right?
Or superflex drafts?
Superflex, like he's going like top 10, right?
In rookie drafts? Oh yeah. I took him 109 in one rookie Devy combined, so it's a little different. But yeah, no, I've seen a lot of him going around the back end of the first and sometimes even a little earlier. Like I know I'm in a 14 team league and he went I think like 106, 107. Right? So the more teams you have and that quarterback scarcity exists more, the higher he is. 10 team leagues. I did a 10 team league and he actually fell to the 204.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, number of teams, I think it's totally kind of dependent on that. But I think for a conventional 12 teams, it's tough to see him get out of the first round. I think even last year, it's tough to imagine. But I remember some leagues where Herbert was falling to the very end of the first round, sometimes even out of the first round altogether in Superflex. Yeah. And I wonder if people realize, okay, that was a big mistake and are maybe overreacting to that. And you're ensuring they're going to get those quarterbacks. They're not going to let them get out of the first round, which I mean, to be fair, but that scarcity, and it seems like, the quarterback scoring was so high last year that it kind of just pushed up the value at the positions in general.
Yeah.
Or at that position, I mean.
Do you have a strong take on Mac Jones, Kyle? Like you took him in your Devy league. I mean, what's your sense? Did you just take him because you're like quarterback scarcity? I just need a quarterback. Or
I was looking at. Yeah, so it was one of those where again unless I wanted to dive deep into a Devy quarterback like a CJ Stroud or Jalen Smith. He was like the next best quarterback available, and at least this way it's okay. I got the rookie now, might get production. I'm thinking like Gerson. I do think he'll make an appearance this year, unless the Patriots really are winning a lot of games with Cam and they're in the hunt for a playoff spot. They'll wait until they're eliminated, but I don't know if this team is going to compete, and I think because of that, I expect maybe, like you're saying, around mid-season, week 10, week 11. I think they've got a late bye. I wonder if that may be like a week 10 bye, maybe wait till week 11 to do it. I'll look that up. But I remember seeing them with a late bye.
I expect the Patriots to compete. They freaking went all in the free agent, and they added so much talent. And they're bringing back talent from the COVID. So, I mean, their offensive line is monsterish. Like, you go look at that offensive line, and, like, that's why I'm buying Damian Harris everywhere, you know. And I think they'll compete. But the thing is, if Cam Newton's not looking good, Mac Jones time.
Yeah, that's true. He might, even if he's winning. Yeah, week 14 by the way. Yeah. So I think that'll be a good clear picture, right? If like at week 15, if they're not competing, I think for sure you'll see him.
Yeah.
But like Garrison said, they might think he's the best chance to win anyway.
One thing that's interesting is I think one of the guys that's kind of flying under the radar who really got hurt by Cam Newton being the quarterback was James White. So it's like if you're not in on Cam Newton and you're thinking that Mac Jones is going to get some playing time, and you know Cam Newton, I think he's either 32 or 33 now. Like he's getting a little bit up there, and he gets nicked up. He does run a lot, and he's had his shoulder issues. He had some kind of weird abdominal issue that nobody talked about last year. So he can miss some games here and there, and then Mac Jones is in there. But if Mac Jones is going to get significant playing time, then the guy that I'm kind of back in on is James White, because Cam Newton kind of siphons off a lot of the James White type production with those short catches and running around the goal line and things like that. Certainly Damian Harris is another guy that I think has a lot of value and is going later than maybe he should. James White's he's almost free at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on your drafts, and he's been a guy that in the last 4 years prior to last year, he averaged 12.6 PPR points per game. And you can get that in the double digit rounds, and he comes back to even approaching something like that. That's a pretty big value.
Is there any player we think actually gets hurt by going from Cam Newton to Mac Jones? Because I think we were talking up, fantasy wise, it'll help the running backs. Cam won't vulture as many goal line carries and just carries in general, dump offs to the running back. So it seems like we're all like running back wise, we kind of want Jones to be the guy. But are there any players that are hurt by that transition and would actually benefit from having Cam the entire season?
I don't think so, because if you were to remove Cam Newton, it's for his passing game being bad. It's not going to be for his running game being bad. And if Mac Jones goes in there, it's only going to – he has to be better than what Cam Newton is at passing the ball. So I think he will improve it. But the thing is, I'm not really all excited about the weapons that they have out there on offense for the wide receivers. Tight end, maybe Jonnu Smith. I'm not a big Hunter Henry guy, but – if they run that 2 tight end set, I mean, that'll help Mac Jones get more protection and also get more of the hot route and whatnot. But I think it'll be just short dump, and that's the thing that Alabama, he killed it. Some people don't know how good he did last year. If you put his stats next to Joe Burrow's stats the year before, they're not that far off, I mean, it's some pretty good stuff that he did at Alabama. Obviously, he had tremendous talent, but I mean, the NFL is different, though.
I could see the one player maybe getting hurt is because we saw it last year, Cam Newton seemed to have a favorite target, and that was Jacoby Myers. Maybe Myers isn't Mac Jones' favorite target. So maybe he's not even Newton's favorite target this year with all the new weapons they've brought in. But if that relationship exists, maybe it gets hurt by Mac Jones, maybe not trusting Myers as much, just because he's coming, like Newton's got to work with Myers, where all these new players coming in don't have that relationship built up yet. But for Mac Jones, everyone's new, so there's no favorite. So I wonder if it's Myers maybe. But even then, maybe Myers still maintains his targets and gets more efficient passes. But yeah, I agree with you. It's tough to see anyone that's really hurt by going to Mac Jones. So I think I don't know how much good there is in this list, but a little bit of Hamid influence. He wanted to ask us this question and then conveniently isn't here to answer it. So good on him to avoid this completely and force us to talk about this.
Doc,
but it's
didn't you say on the last show, Doc, that I think it was on Twitter, you said it in the chat, he said every single time Hamid misses it, he needs to give us like a few days in advance, but he does it the same day always.
Oh yeah, no, he's a total. I mean, he's the master of the of the late disappearing act. I mean, he rolls his hand grenade into the room and then conveniently dives out of the way and lets us deal with it. But it's what it's all about, right? Like we got to roll with the punches. We got to be versatile. We got to be flexible. So here we are. So Hamid, if you're watching, this one's for you.
Well, I gotta say, hand grenade. I don't know if this passing offense is that explosive, but ranking the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers. So again, Dynasty Gambit. This is for Dynasty purposes. I mean, I could think of maybe the 6 main ones, right? So I don't know if we want to go 1 to 6, or is there anyone that we want to not even talk about? What are you guys feeling for this?
I'm good with that. I'm ready. I'm ready for anything at this point.
Yeah, okay. I wonder if we all agree at top. Because the way I'm looking at it, I thought it was a pretty obvious 2 for this, and I'm kind of feeling one guy more in particular. Okay. I don't know did you guys see it as like an obvious 2, and then everyone else kind of 3 through 6?
I did, and then it was like kind of trying to decide between the 2 of them was where the nuance was.
Yeah, Jerson, do you see it similarly?
The way you guys are talking about it makes me wonder, like, are we thinking about the same 2?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. We talk about the same 2 guys.
Is this for Dynasty?
Yeah, for Dynasty.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're thinking about the same 2.
All right, so I'll start. I've got Rashad Bateman 1, the rookie right away, and then Marquise Brown 2. Is that the same? Is that the same 2 first off as everyone?
Yeah, that's the same 2 for me, and also the same order. Although it was close. Like it was. Yeah, I struggled with it.
I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy. I think he's alpha. I think he's ready to they said it today in the beat writer said that he's gonna be a priority in the offense. And obviously his talent, I know a lot of people were down on him because of the whole he came out like 2 inches shorter and like 20 pounds lighter or 10 pounds lighter or something like that. It was COVID season. Like,
was he on the Travis Etienne diet?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's the thing to me, like Rashad Bateman, his talent is there. Like you go back and look at the tape, and I'm not a big tape guy, but when I saw his tape, he reminded me so much of AJ Green. I was like, he's so fluid, he knows how to get off the line, he knows how to get open, and he's not exactly like a burner, but he knows how to separate. And so I love Rashad Bateman there. What's his name? Marquise Brown. I think this is his what do you call it? Breakout or fake out or boom or bust year? Because dude, like last year, I mean, I can't tell you how much he dropped more balls than anybody I saw. I mean, it's just like, and the worst part is, I mean, I know it's Lamar Jackson throwing it about, but damn, sometimes there's red in his hand and he dropped it. And I think after these 2 guys, it just kind of dropped downhill for Dynasty.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. But yeah, it's like I really wasn't sure how to kind of play this, and I thought about Hollywood Brown last year is the number 1, 58 catches, 769, 8 touchdowns, which is pretty good. I was like, I feel like Rashad Bateman could do that this year, and then has a higher ceiling, has potential to even exceed that this year and going forward. And he's 3 years younger. He's depending on what stats you believe, 6 foot, 190 versus 5'9", 180.
Yeah.
So, like because of those things, I'm like, all right, well, I'm not a huge I'm always like tempering my rookie fever, writing the prescription for rookie fever, as it were. But in this case, I'm like, yeah, I think I kind of agree. It's like I like Bateman coming in, and I like him a little bit better than Marquise.
I think the one main reason for me is kind of area of the field. And I don't know if this is for sure going to happen, but Rashad Bateman does profile as if he could succeed in the slot. One thing we've seen is Lamar Jackson. This dates back to Louisville. This isn't even a Baltimore thing. It's been Lamar Jackson's whole career. He's much more accurate over the middle than he is outside the numbers. Mm-hmm. So the perimeter wide receiver like Brown, he got 110 targets last year, but talk about the drops and not a great catch rate. So I think where you want your pass catchers for the Ravens are the guys over the middle. That's why I have Mark Andrews rated as highly as I do, and I think Bateman will immediately as a rookie overtake Brown. Maybe not necessarily in targets, but certainly in catches. I think he'll have a much better catch rate, maybe even a better yards efficiency, catching the balls in stride over the middle, as we've seen Mark Andrews do the last couple of years. So I could see a lot of the offense, passing-wise, concentrated on those two targets in the middle, the tight end and, again, Rashad Bateman, if he is playing primarily from the slot.
So I just wanted to share this about Rashad Bateman. There's a chart out on Player Profiler, and it was beautiful to me because I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy. So he basically a breakout age younger than 20, and were drafted in the first round from 2003 to 2018. It included AJ Green, Calvin Ridley, all who broke out at 20 years old in their first college season. This is a strong group, and these are the guys he's associated with: Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins. I think this is John Baldwin. I don't know who Jay Baldwin is, but Julio Jones, AJ Green. I mean, Des Bryant. That's a pretty damn impressive list.
You guys are pretty good.
So, and he's going to an offense where he's gonna get peppered with target. And one of the things, this kind of remind me of a situation where everybody hated AJ Brown situation. He was going to Tennessee, a quarterback that didn't really throw at the time, didn't really throw the ball well. They were a run-heavy offense. Hey, man, if I'm going to get a discount with Rashad Bateman, if he drops me to 109, not a non-super flex, 109, 108, I'm probably going to take him. Yeah. If he's in a super flex, he's probably dropping down to 114, 113. I'll take him there, But I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy. I believe in him.
Yeah, I like it. He's the guy I like in the back end of the first round and in those rookie leagues too.
Yeah. So I think
I think the real interesting stuff is after these guys.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, it's unanimous. We all agree here. All fun and dandy. So who wants to start by sharing their number 3 Baltimore wide receiver?
I will go. I will be first into the breach here. So I really had to think about this, and I kind of struggled with it. And even though it's Dynasty, it was close for me, but I have Sammy Watkins as number 3. Even though he's 28, even though he missed 14 games over the last 3 years, and even though he's on a 1-year contract, this is to me, it's like a classic unloved veteran. He's almost box office poison at this point. I feel like nobody's giving this guy any respect. And he was on that list you just mentioned, G. I didn't miss that. But there's all these things on Twitter. It's they show Rashad Bateman and he's all smooth and, catching the ball. And then they show Sammy Watkins and they're like, oh, he looks terrible. I mean, he's 28. He's a veteran. He's done it before. Yeah. It's he could have a really good year and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And like I said, as far as acquisition costs, he's like box office poison. I did a best ball draft and he went in the 27th round. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty good value right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the age versus production, right? And I'm actually leaning with you there, Doc. And at first I didn't, but I had to go through this 3 through 6. I thought I ranked it probably every single combination possible, and I landed on Watkins at 3 as well. Just thinking that there's not a whole lot of experience there. And while assuming Sammy Watkins plays on the outside as that field stretcher. Yes, Lamar Jackson struggles there, but also Sammy Watkins has not necessarily had the best quarterbacks anyway, and he's kind of made it work. I mean, he had some really great seasons with Tyrod Taylor. I don't really think Tyrod Taylor is a class above Lamar Jackson as a passer or anything.
No.
So I think Sammy can make it work. Actually, I know obviously he made it work with Patrick Mahomes, but he also wasn't getting the targets.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a chance that he becomes more reliable than Marquise Brown, and he already passes him this year in targets? I don't think that's a non-zero chance. So, and just because all the other, the 3 other young guys, if they could, yes, they're all younger than Watkins, but I don't really trust any of them to produce much this year. And if they're not producing, their value is probably to where they're all cheap free anyway. So may as well. Yeah. Even though he's a little older, by the guy that's going to produce. So, Gerson, do you agree with the Doc and I and have Watkins at 3?
I disagree.
Okay.
All right, let's hear it.
I understand the whole Sammy Watkins thing, but the thing is about this guy, he can never stay healthy. Availability is your best ability.
1,000%.
And if I'm going to invest a dynasty roster spot on a player like Sammy Watkins because we've all heard of the dead roster spot. That's what it feels like when I have Sammy Watkins on my team. Like I'll put him in he might be a bye week filler, but if you get good value like Doc said, yeah, great. But if I'm trying to, build a dynasty team, I look for upside. I don't see too much upside with Sammy Watkins, And
Okay.
Tyler.
All right, so who you got? Who do you got at number 3?
Tyler Wallace. So the thing about Tyler Wallace, I was heartbroken when his draft capital didn't go very well. I was a big Tyler Wallace guy, but then I saw the numbers that people maybe said, okay, maybe he doesn't have it in him. That 4.5 40, worrisome. His height, his weight, and everything. But I look at the tape, I look at his talent, and I'm like, what am I missing? But then again, these guys are NFL scouts. They get paid to do this, And he fell down. I was like, as every day went on, I think me and Kyle were like almost every day together on each show or something. But players keep dropping, and I'm like, Tyler Wallace was one of them. Kenneth Gainwell was another one. But I just think Tyler Wallace, if he can, whatever it was that the NFL didn't see in him, if he can fix it, I think his upside there. And
he's the number 3, just to be clear.
Yeah, for me.
Do you have a thermometer handy? Because I think you might have a case of rookie fever.
No, I can't. Like I said, what good is it going to do me if I'm going to have a roster filler? I might as well have a rookie and then just let him sit there. All
right, well, here, let me run this scenario by you. I want to run this past you, and you tell me what you think. So we talk about like in Dynasty appreciating and depreciating assets and things like that, which is great. But the thing is, at a certain point, like you got to get productivity and you get production, and it's not a sin to have a guy on your Dynasty roster who might only be good for this year because, hey, you can maybe win the championship this year. You might not win 5 in a row like Kyle does, but you can win 1. So let's do a little exercise, okay? I'm going to give you a choice. You can have an appreciating asset or a depreciating asset. Which one do you want?
I'm like telling you, how are you going to have you can go to the championship, but Sammy Watkins ain't going to be there.
You sure about that?
He's going to be hurt.
You talking about bye-week filler, injury filler? Like, what if the guy's the number 1 on the team and he's being productive this year? You get points for production. Well, look, you can have an appreciating asset or a depreciating asset. Which one do you want?
I'm just not going to have Sammy Watkins be my guy on my roster.
So you want the appreciating asset?
Yeah, I'm going to take
Okay, cool. Now, the thing that I would want to know is maybe you want to know what the value of that appreciating asset is before you take it. Because the depreciating asset, which was going to go down 20% this year, is worth $100. The appreciating asset's worth 50 cents. So your value is you got 75 cents. Congratulations, you made a 50% profit. But I'll take the value on the depreciating asset this year because it's got a higher value. I'll worry about next year and the year after that later.
That's fine.
Buying points, right? That's which again,
those points and that productivity counts. And besides, you missed out on my boy. The guy that I thought you were going to go with, I was really hoping with, is if you don't believe in Sammy Watkins, listen, Tyler Wallace, great player, but he actually made number 6 on my list. The guy that I was really interested in is Devin Duvernay. He's the guy. If you want to get a cheap piece of this offense, he may already be ahead of Miles Boykin, who had the second most snaps of all the Ravens wide receivers in 2020, and 2 times as many as Devin Duvernay. And they had about the same amount of production. So if you don't believe in Sammy Watkins, if you think he's going to get hurt and you want to get a cheap piece of this offense, I want as many pieces of the Ravens offense as I can get reasonably. And Bateman falls in there. Marquise Brown falls in there. Sammy Watkins definitely falls in there. And Devin Duvernay is beyond free. I think it's like if you draft him, they give you like an extra pick after that to pick somebody else. If something happens to Sammy Watkins, he could slide right in there, and then you've got a piece of this offense for nothing. So that's it. I'm out. that's my take.
Don't leave. We still got like another half hour.
So yes, okay. So that's your number. I guess you're at number 4 now, Doc, right?
Yeah. So Duvernay, Boykin after that, and Tylan Wallace. I like them all. But like I said, it was a struggle to order those guys. But that's kind of what I came up with and why.
I just think this list is pretty dry cut after the top 3. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you made that point abundantly clear, and it's okay. We can agree to disagree, my friend.
Oh hell yeah!
We're both Raiders fans, so
yeah.
We agree on that.
So I think, I know for me, so my number 4 actually is the rookie Tylan Wallace, just because. Okay, Boykin, tons of snaps, 6 red zone targets too last year. I think that could disappear though with guys like Bateman coming in and
he did have 4 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, and maybe even Tylan Wallace comes in and could maybe take away some of those red zone targets. So I think between the 3, I have Wallace higher. Again, maybe a bit of rookie fever. Although I got to say, Doc, I think we all had rookie fever because we all did name a rookie as the number 1 Ravens wide receiver this year. So we might all be guilty of having that. So I like the tape. I know I was someone who's expecting Wallace to come out in 2020. And I mean, he was a 4th round pick in 2021 with that deep receiver class in 2020. He might have fell even further, right? So maybe in a sense it was a good
stuff. A lot of mitigating circumstances there. I don't know how much you can, it's a good point to maybe not put as much stock into draft capital. We talked about it ad nauseum, so we won't go into it again. But this year especially, maybe kind of like either the outlier or we say, hey, you know what, draft capital didn't matter as much as we thought because of all the mitigating circumstances that we couldn't kind of account for.
And so I think of those 3, like I'm not really excited about any of the 3, but I think Wallace is probably the highest ceiling in the sense because I think we kind of, again, Doc said it right. Boykin was second on the wide receivers in snaps, and he caught 19 targets last year, or he caught 19 passes. He had 33 targets. And 4 touchdowns on 19 receptions. Lamar Jackson has historically been a very high touchdown rate quarterback. At least he has been the last 2 seasons, incredibly high. He's at like Patrick Mahomes level for touchdown rate, obviously on much fewer attempts. So there is some touchdown upside. But I just think that Boykin's kind of already maybe shown his ceiling. I think there might be more of a ceiling with Wallace. So I'm going Wallace 4, Boykin 5, and Duvernay 6, unfortunately. If there was a chance where, like, if they hadn't drafted Bateman and they drafted more of a perimeter style receiver, where Duvernay could be the starting slot receiver, I'd probably put him much higher than 6. But he's got very little touchdown upside. He had 0 touchdowns last year. He only had 2 red zone targets. And again, with added weapons like receivers like Watkins and Bateman, I expect to get more red zone targets than him. I don't see how it goes up. Yes, they lost Willie Snead. He accounted for 8 red zone targets. But again, I think Bateman, Watkins might do more than that. So I just have a hard time seeing Duvernay succeed. Unfortunately, again, slot receiver in theory should be good with Lamar Jackson, but I just don't know that his ceiling is very high at all. So
I'm glad we don't agree on this because it's like it's more fun when we don't agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, top 2 were the same, but it sort of that's where the similarities ended. So again, it's the talk of production versus youth. So I'm curious, Gerson, what's your full ranking for these top 6? Assuming unless there's another receiver that you think should be in higher than those mentioned, but I think it is a pretty clear 6.
Wide receiver outside of the ones we've already mentioned. I'm going to be really.
I like Duvernay. I think he's very talented. He's fast. He was a special team player last year, and when he played like on special team, he was great. The thing is with Duvernay, my worry is there's 393 passes going around. They ain't like going like 600 passes, So. To me, Duvernay, he has to earn. They went out and drafted more wide receivers for a reason because they didn't believe in him. They didn't believe in all the wide receivers they had. So they went and got Bateman. They went and got Wallace. They signed Sammy Watkins. These 3 guys basically told the other 3 guys, "Hey, you guys suck. We're gonna come in here and take your job." So basically, that's what happened. And I think Duvernay's talented. I just wish they could utilize him correctly because the thing is. They can't because Lamar Jackson's not that talented of a passer. He's good. I don't think he sucks. Like a lot of people think he's very inaccurate and whatnot. I just think he never had the weapon. Give him Bateman, give him Watkins. I think his ceiling is very high this year, and he's gonna be one of those quarterbacks I'm gonna be targeting probably in the 5th or 4th round, maybe later.
Totally.
It depends where he's falling, But I think Lamar Jackson could break fantasy again this year, but as always, I'm gonna say Dak Prescott, my number 1 quarterback. So
nice.
Yeah, I think they're in to me, that's a pretty clear top 6 at quarterback in both Dynasty and Redraft, so we can talk about that here. I think it's the same 6. You already mentioned Dak, Jackson. I think Mahomes is an obvious one. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert. That's probably your top 6. And I think, again, all formats, Dynasty, Redraft.
Doc, you
Doc trying different light formats here.
I give up. I give up.
We can see you.
Thing here. I'm trying to make it happen. It ain't happening. So
you look good, man. You look good. You're good, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So are we saying lights out on this conversation about the Ravens receivers?
Lights out on the Ravens wide receivers, although it was a good one.
We spent too much time on that.
No, I don't think we did. I thought it was great.
Let's go.
All right, so let's talk about something maybe a bit more fun. And actually, it's funny. Talk about that 6th quarterback I mentioned, Justin Herbert. That's maybe our connection here. So, like every episode, we go through a roster. And again, Hamid provided us with this roster, so I don't know exactly team name or where this is from. So again, Hamid giving us the work, and let's get to it.
I love these team names. These are great. Davlo 69. 1 quarterback, PPR league, 2 running backs, start 3 wide receivers, 2 flex, tight end, kicker, defense.
All right, so I'll just quickly run through the roster. So at quarterback, mentioned one single quarterback. So we've got Justin Herbert and backup Matt Ryan. That's it, just the 2 rostered quarterbacks. Considering the format, that seems fine. Running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Najee Harris, and then we've got on the bench Malcolm Brown, Devontae Booker, James Conner, Matt Breida, Tony Pollard. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Travis Etienne. That might have been the first guy I should have mentioned on the bench. And then wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Juju Smith-Schuster, Robbie Anderson, Devontae Smith, got a rookie there, Nelson Aguilar, Devin Funchess, Demarcus Robinson, Corey Davis, Diami Brown. So a few rookies sprinkled on this team, and then a tight end.
I don't know if you said Des Fitzpatrick, and I think at quarterback, I think he has Cousins from Minnesota, Carr, and Kyle Trask.
Oh, okay, so there's some cutoff. Yeah, because I could see Trask. Okay, so a bit deeper than I thought quarterback room. Tight end, starting tight end is Hunter Henry. The only other tight end I see backup is Tyler Eifert.
He's got Freiermuth on his
right. Freiermuth on the taxi. Okay, so looking at this roster, what's your general impressions, takeaways?
It's deep. Is it? Yep. Wait, what is it? A 12 team? Was it?
That I don't know.
Didn't specify.
Because if it's a 12 team, I like it. But if it's like a 16 team, this team is deep. And especially it's well balanced between rookies and veterans, I guess you can say, whatever you want to call them. And he has a lot of players that I'm targeting this year. I love Zeke. I think Zeke's going to have a bounce back year this year. I really like this team. He drafted very well, obviously, too, with Devontae Smith, Travis Etienne,
Najee.
I mean, how the hell did you get with this team? You got 3 top 5 picks at least.
Probably three picks in the top half for sure. Probably. I mean, sometimes Smith is falling behind guys like Bateman, Waddle, so maybe he felt like the 108. But yeah, it's hard to think that he doesn't have 3 picks in the first top of the draft. Yeah. And again, no team specification. I'm assuming this is 12 team.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
I mean, we are in agreement. Like you said it perfectly. Like he's got a nice mix. He's got a nice young core. He's got some veterans mixed in. He's got really good depth at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. And now we're looking at the roster like on paper before the season starts and guys start getting injured. Like I really like teams that have that depth. And you kind of alluded to it. I don't know if it was the last time you were on or the time before that, where it's like you have a team that's not really that deep, but it looks good on paper until the season starts, and then you get a couple of injuries, and you're like, and now you're a lottery team. And it's like, I don't like that. It's like guys are like, oh, look at my starting squad. It's a super squad. And it's like, you look at the bench, and it's like, okay, yeah, you got one guy maybe fill in for a bye, but if you get 2 or 3 guys that get hurt in the same week, which, football, that does happen. People do get injured occasionally playing football. You gotta have people to fill those spots in, or you gotta have some way to acquire people that can fill those spots and get production for you. And he has that in spades, really. So, I'm really, really impressed with the team, really like the team, and don't really want to tinker with it too much until we get to the tight end room.
And he did very well because, like, if you look at this, he has Zeke, then he has Pollard. And then he has a bunch
really
of
smart, really smart. I mean, you got one of your running back positions covered for the whole year, and then you can just play around with all those other running backs. And he actually has ETN, who's probably flexible on his bench currently. So even if you had a wide receiver that was on a bye, he can move one of those guys out of the flex. You could throw ETN in there. You have a lot of these guys that are very flexible. For bye weeks and injuries and things like that, which I really like. I mean, it's got a lot of flexibility. It's really, really nice.
What I really like is that he also has Devontae Booker, right?
Devontae.
He has Devontae Booker, who's the backup to Saquon Barkley. He has James Conner, we don't know who the starting running back is yet, but let's say it's Edmund, and then he got Conner.
Yep.
He got Pollard. So basically, if any of those running back goes down, he gains value on his roster. And then he has Corey Davis upside for wide receiver 1 on that team.
Aguilar, wide receiver
upside. We'll see.
Well, especially if Jacoby Myers isn't the guy, right? I mean, Aguilar might be the top wide receiver there.
They brought him in there for a reason. I wanted to mention, you mentioned Devontae Booker. I want to talk about him specifically because he could be big in the early going. Because they're already kind of laying the groundwork that Saquon Barkley might not be ready to start the season. Now, I'm not saying don't draft Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying that he sucks or he's going to have a down year. He's going to get hurt again. He just might not be ready for the first game, 2-3 games, in which case Devontae Booker is going to have a lot of value for those games. And he's definitely somebody that you could plug in that he's going to be really productive, I would think. So we don't know the details yet, but I do kind of have a little bit of trepidation that Saquon Barkley might not be ready to start the year. And then you ask the question, what if, or who benefits? And he definitely benefits if that's the case.
Booker is one of the guys I'm targeting in the late round. Devontae Booker and LaMichael P. Ryan. Those are my top 2 targets in the late round right now. When I say late round, I mean like late.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not using a 0 running back strategy with them, that's for sure. But it's just when I do like the Saquon Barkley news and everything, how they say they're doing it slowly and everything. If you really look at it, Saquon Barkley, I believe, only played 13 games the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So it kind of worried me a little bit. Like, if you're really going to invest a top 5 pick in I guess if it's a super flex league, top 15 pick, I think people are saying that they got him at the 20th overall. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. But, if you're going to invest, you better get Devontae Booker as a handcuff in the later round at a good value.
Totally agree. I mean, your bench is going to be important. I still like him up there in the top 5 because on a points per game basis, he's a monster. Like, he can have these runs, catches, and whatever that can win you the week by himself. But it's not all about it's like, oh, well, this guy's going to miss a couple of games, so his total production is going to be down. You don't have to take a 0 if he doesn't play. You could put somebody else in there. That's where your bench comes in. That's why your backups come in. So on a points per game basis, I mean, look at McCaffrey last year. He played 3 games. On a points per game basis, he was still number 1 in the league. The problem is that he only played 3 games, and you had to fill in those spots for the other 14. But
it's so crazy. Like, if you went into last year being like, oh, man, I have Saquon Barkley, I have Christian McCaffrey,
exactly.
I have Julio Jones, I'm going to I have George Kittle. There's no way this team's losing.
Exactly.
I did an auction, and it's funny. I'm recording a podcast later with Bob Lung, and in that auction, I got McCaffrey, he got Barkley, and then guys like Jonathan Taylor and Zeke went actually for more. So we were sitting there laughing, and I think we're both bottom 3 teams. So and I thought, that team was injured. I think my 5 biggest acquisitions all finished the year on injured reserve.
Injuries are the great equalizer in fantasy football, which, since we're talking about Dynasty, I want to throw this out there. It's like people talk about, like, my team has no chance this year. Your team always has a chance because guys get injured. Like, you're looking at your roster in June and July, like, that's great. But once, OTA start and training camp starts and the preseason starts, like, guys get hurt. and all these guys that you think have no value, all of a sudden they might have some value. So you're never really out of it, and you're never really safe either. I mean, we've all seen that with rosters like we're talking about that look like juggernauts, and then a couple of guys get hurt, and the next thing you know, you got some big holes to fill, and can you do it? Like, that's where the depth really comes into play, and that's what we're talking about right now.
I think he could improve the tight end position, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, because Hunter Henry and Tyler Eifert. First off, Tyler Eifert shouldn't even be on your team. You should, and you have the Cardinals defense, the Cowboys defense. Those are teams probably improve your backup defense. Washington, great. They added, I think it's Jasmine Davis, is it, or that middle linebacker? I can't remember, but they drafted him, and I think he's going to be a very good fit with them for Washington football team. And they're going to be monsterish this year. They're going to be good on defense. Offense, I mean, if Fitzpatrick works at Magic, then yeah. But improve the tight end position. I mean,
so maybe this is something we could talk about because I think this is interesting. I think we're kind of in agreement. You know, he's got a lot of depth at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and we're all kind of in. Kyle, you agree? He could improve the tight end position. So why don't we do that? Why don't we give him, you know, kind of 3 takes on what he could do with his team and his draft picks and whatever, and just take a quick stab at it and you know, kind of lay some strategy out for him. That sound good to you guys?
Yeah, I'm done.
Perfect. I will say, I mean, for, you know, to choose a position to fade, tight end probably makes the most sense, given the league scoring settings.
I'm down.
Created all these strengths elsewhere. Don't compromise those strengths just to get a tight end.
Yeah.
So what do we think?
Your team, how would you improve it?
Yeah. So I think what you want to do is go for players that we think, again, maybe the production doesn't quite match the value. Like the value is a lot higher than what that production is. Or you look for someone who's desperate. And maybe there's a few ways to go about that. I mean, we've already talked about Devontae Booker. And, you know, mentioned the fact that you know, this manager that we're looking at now has both Zeke and Pollard, that safety security. With this news of Barkley coming on slow, I wonder if you go to the Barkley manager, and if they've got multiple tight ends on their team, if they're willing to give you a starting caliber tight end straight up for Booker just to get that insurance, or maybe you add a little bit, because I know this team also has some picks, you know, an extra 4th, maybe you use that extra 4th in Booker and get a tight end from the Barkley manager. Maybe they'll be the most desperate to give up a starting caliber that you can have as an upgrade over Hunter Henry. So I think that's one way that I could think of right off the bat. Are there any other trade possibilities that either of you can think of?
I'd go offer Pat Freiermuth. Is it Freiermuth or Freiermuth or whatever? Freiermuth. And then maybe, you know, he has depth at running back. That's for sure. But I don't trade my running backs away for nothing, especially not for a tight end.
Yeah.
So I'd probably try to trade one of the guys like Corey Davis, Nelson Aguilar, and then Freiermuth to, you know, one of those teams that might need a wide receiver or something like that, and get a tight end. The tight ends I'm targeting all year. Well, obviously you're not going to get Hawkinson for a very cheap price. Hawkins is my number 1. Number 2 is Irv Smith Jr. Number 3 is Adam Troutman. So I'd go sniff around and see if I can get one of those 3 guys. I know everybody has a different list of tight ends they love, but that's why tight end is so, you know, volatile. Like, you don't know. I mean, last year the last 2 years I've gotten very lucky. Last year I called out Logan Thomas. The year before that I called out Darren Waller. I still haven't figured out who's going to be my Darren Waller of this year.
Wait, why does it have to be luck? Why can't you just say I'm that damn good?
I don't like to brag, man. I stay humble.
Good humble brag there. But yeah, and so Freiermuth is interesting, right? I mean, rookie tight ends, I've never been a really big fan. We've seen the struggles. So maybe there's some hype there, though. The fact that he was the 2nd tight end drafted, I wonder if there's a bit of rookie fever hype. So that's a good point, Gerson. Maybe you can shop him along with an older wide receiver and get a good starting tight end. I'm trying to think of like a good option. I mean,
I got a little bit of a different take from you guys, and maybe we can, another option, the way you can play it. So
yeah, go ahead, Doc.
The thing is that you're talking about tight ends that you love, that everybody loves. Honestly, I think Hunter Henry is going to be just fine as far as the production that he's going to give. He should be in the top 10. I think he's going to be okay. The issue is depth. So I would say that instead of going for tight ends that other people love, look at the tight ends that other people hate. because we just need a body in there. We need somebody that's going to do something if something happens to Hunter Henry. And by the way, Jonnu Smith's already dealing with like hamstring injuries and stuff like that, so his stock can even go up a little higher. But the tight ends that other people were really down on this year as a potential option, and a couple of them come to mind. So Zach Ertz is number one. Everybody hates that guy now all of a sudden. I mean, he was like a 5th round pick last year in redraft. And he had a high ankle sprain that he tried to gut out. Not only does he not get any credit for that, but basically they've anointed Dallas Goedert as his replacement, and they're just waiting for him to get traded and or shot, and it looks like they don't really care which. So, I mean, yeah, he's 30 years old, but he can still play. And he's a guy that if you need somebody that's going to give you production, I think he'll be able to do that. Hayden Hurst is another one in Atlanta. Yeah, they got Kyle Pitts there, and I know that there's varying opinions on, everybody there. It runs the gamut from they love him and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer to he sucks and he's overrated. But either way, Hayden Hurst is not going to evaporate. He's still a really good tight end, and he's going to get some production too. And then there's other guys that are just kind of universally hated across the league by most people. Like Evan Ingram is another guy. We talked about, I wish Hamid was here so we could watch his head explode at the mere mention of his name. But we mentioned Daniel Jones last year, and he went on a 10-minute diatribe about how he hates him and his entire family. But what if Daniel Jones actually gets better next year? And Evan Ingram is one of the beneficiaries of that. He's box office poison at this point too. What's it going to cost to get one of these guys? I don't think it's going to be much. And that's really all you need. So that's kind of my take on it. I'm looking at that 3rd round pick next year, which we can get to that as far as how 2022 versus 2023 is going to show up at some points. We haven't talked about that yet. But that 3rd round pick for 2022, if somebody values that at all and they're just hey, I want to get another pick and I want to get this tight end off my roster, you might not even have to give up a player. And just I don't even want this guy anymore. He's a stiff.
You just
I want him out.
We named those 3 tight ends. I'm looking at my Dynasty ranking. I realized I have Evan Ingram 16th overall. And then you named Hayden Hurst. I have him 25th overall.
Yeah.
And what was his name? Zach Ertz. It's going to blow your mind, but I have him 31st overall.
Yeah, I saw 25th. 31st. It's that to me feels like recency bias. I get it. But we don't need him to start. We just need him to fill in. And, Hunter Henry's the starter. If something happens to him, you got to make some moves on the fly.
You're looking for value. You're looking for value.
1,000%. I just want a guy in there that he's not going to stink if I got to plug him in. And that's all you really need.
Are you guys, how do you feel about Robbie Anderson? Because I feel like it's time to sell.
The hype train's definitely getting oiled up. I think he's going to be good. It's just, it all comes down to the same thing: acquisition cost versus value versus what do you need. Yeah. It's hard to make absolute statements here, which sounds like a cop out. But it's what's your depth? What do you need? What are you looking to do? And
I would sell Juju if I was him, because he has solid wide receivers like Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans. But Juju, we don't know where he's going to be next year, and we see what the market for wide receiver is now. If you're not an elite wide receiver, or someone dumb like the New York Giants to believe that you're an elite wide receiver like Kenny Galladay, they're not going to pay you. And if this is going to be, and I think I saw something. What's his name? I think Daniel Jeremiah said along the line that teams are not interested in signing wide receivers to long-term contract unless they believe they're an elite wide receiver like a Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime, that they're going to take him over the top. And Juju right now just screams sells to me. So maybe, get upgrade there, but this is a solid ass team.
I'll be honest with you, I play it a little bit differently. I don't really try to think that far ahead because there's too many variables that come into play. We talked about it already. It's what you think you know, you may not know. And maybe working in the medical field, that gets hammered home even further. But I wouldn't, if I could help it, I wouldn't get rid of any of these players because Juju, he's got a 1-year contract, but they signed him for a decent amount of money. We don't know what the Steelers are going to do. But he could also have a really good year in his walk year, and then they decide to sign him to a long-term contract. Or you could go somewhere else and pull a Kenny Galladay. He's still a young guy, so I'm not looking to get rid of any of these players because depth is important. I'm not cutting this depth for anything. unless I have a good reason to. And right now, I would let it roll.
I think if you're going to sell Juju or Robbie Anderson, I think a key thing is no player should be off limits, right? Like, I mean, theoretically, if you get the Godfather offer for Tyreek Hill, where you're getting multiple starting caliber players that you can put in your lineup, and suddenly your starting lineup depth's even better, and you can still maintain somewhat of a ceiling there. Like, you can do that, but assuming that deal doesn't come in, I mean, for Juju and Robbie Anderson, and I think even Mike Evans could enter into this as well. So Garrison, what type of package are you looking to get? Because I don't think it's picks, right? This team seems it's prepared to compete, right? So you're looking for players for those players. So
I would like for Juju and them. I think for Juju, I'm going to go and try to get a rookie wide receiver. I'm going to go try to get see if someone's shopping Bateman, someone's shopping. Well, you're not going to be shopping Jamar Chase for him, that's for sure.
Jalen Waddle, maybe.
Jalen Waddle straight up.
Jalen Waddle, and I hate this because we keep saying this over and over, rookie fever. But I'm one of those dynasty owners. I believe in talent. Like if I want that guy, I'm going to go after that guy.
I totally respect that.
Any second year
believes in production now.
Oh well, second year guys. I've said it enough. And I think I said it last time on the Going for Two podcast with Ryan. Sorry, guys. I drank pro beers that show. And
that was amazing, by the way. Kyle and I were talking about that. That was fantastic.
You're infamous now, apparently. Yeah. So definitely, anyone, go check out the Armchair Fantasy show from 2 weeks ago. And you can check out the most recent episode, too. They had David Klug on. That was pretty good. But 2 weeks ago, they had Gerson. So definitely check out all the shows on the Going for Two Live network, of course.
Guys, if you have not seen that show, you have to go watch that show. The Armchair Fantasy Show is a fantastic show, just at its baseline. But you add the magic mixture of G and 12 beers in an hour. I mean, you can't. It's fantastic.
The worst thing is these guys made fun of me the next day in the morning, and they're like, "Gee, do you remember last night's show?" I'm like, "Yeah, I remember. What do you mean?" And then the thing they didn't realize that before the show, I actually drank 6 beers, and I was like, "Oh man, was that bad?" So I went and listened to the podcast again. I'm like, "Hey, I wasn't that bad." But to answer your question, Kyle, I'm big on CeeDee Lamb. You're not gonna get him for Juju. I like Jerry Jeudy. You're not gonna get him for Juju. After that, it goes down. I'm trying to think second year wide receivers.
Brandon Ayuk is the one I'm maybe thinking of. I think Jamar Jefferson is off the price, but Juju to Ayuk, what does that look like? I mean, do you?
You're going to have to give up a little bit more. So you'd have to give Juju
that third, that 2023 third. Do you think that's enough to make that happen?
Possibly in a 12-team league, because the scarcity for a 12-team league is the value of picks are more valuable. So let's say if a 12-team, you say Juju and a third for Ayuk. But here's the thing, though. I like Ayuk, but I'm also worried about the usage. I think it's all going to everybody loves Kittle always, right? They love Ayuk, Deebo Samuel's there. They drafted Trey Sermon. They got it's the crazy offense. I can't wait till Trey Lance takes over because I'm sick and tired of watching Jeff Boyfriend throw the football. He's not good. By the way, everybody, Jeff Boyfriend is Jimmy G. Trust me, guys, his wife is much more beautiful than Jimmy G. But anyway, I like Ayuk. But you're going to have to pay a little more to get him. But, yeah, you're not getting Justin Jefferson for sure.
It kind of feels like a lateral move at this point, though, right? It's like you're taking Juju and you're adding a third-round pick, and then you're adding Ayuk. It's like, I guess kind of my take on it with this team is just roll with it, see what happens.
Yeah, true, I agree.
To do it. It's like we get to this point, it's like not that we're bored, but it's like, the idle hands of the devil's workshop, right? It's like, We don't have anything else to do. The rookie draft is over. OTAs, are going on, but training camp hasn't started. It's like, oh, I want to make a trade. I want to do something. I want to be active. Yeah. And it's like sometimes you just got to let things marinate, and wait and see what happens. You don't want to undercut your depth, and then 3 guys get injured in the first week of training camp, and you're like, oh wow, I wish I would have traded all
having depth in Dynasty. If anybody ever told you that depth doesn't matter, it had to be a girl, But it matters. This depth in Dynasty is the way you win championship.
1,000%.
I can't tell you how many times I had a running back go down. I'm like, oh, I'm good. Now I got to go trade my asset, my first round pick, to go get a running back that can You know.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about the first round pick. I do think that actually is a great piece for this team. I think we're all under the impression this team is going to compete, right? So that first is probably going to be late, and a first, a single quarterback, late first. I'm not so excited about that. So that first is definitely a piece that I'm willing to move. Mm-hmm. Hold on to the 2023 first because you never know. This team doesn't look the same next year, but I think that 2022 first can for sure be moved. I mean, just the pick straight up, someone might be willing to give again a starting caliber player that can suddenly replace Robbie Anderson in the starting lineup, or maybe even replace Juju in the lineup, right? So
that pick is in my crosshairs. Is at some point he's going to get rid of that pick because we haven't really talked about it much. But I just want to touch on it real quick. There's a couple of projected 2022 drafts out there, and there is only one player in the top 19 that is a non-quarterback skill player projected to go. And then from 20, the end of the first round, there's a couple of running backs, a couple of wide receivers, and a tight end. That's if they come out. Granted, it's all projections, but this is not looking to be a stacked draft. And
similar to this year, 2021. Those late first,
they're like, wow, first round pick. Like, I'm excited for that. Well, that first round pick might not end up being a whole hell of a lot. So 2023, that's a different story. I'm not selling those for anything, but you got yourself with a first round pick and win yourself a championship this year, I'm all in for that.
So me and Kyle, I think we're on the same page about 2023. This 2023 draft is going to be like the J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor draft. It's going to be so deep that's where you want to put all your chips in if you're doing a full rebuild.
1,000%.
2022, dude. Like I already sold all my 2022 picks.
I got one left. I'm down. I'm begging to give this thing away.
Actually, if nothing else, if you can't get a good player for the 2022 first, can you literally ship it for a 2023 first? Like, is someone willing to give the year back? Maybe someone doesn't quite see the draft class like we do, right? So maybe go show up those offers. But I do think one of the most tradable pieces on this team is that 2022 first. And maybe you wait in season, and then if you hit with an injury, you use it as a kind of a...
That's releasing the hole right there. That's what I'm looking at.
Do you use the first to go after an elite tight end? Maybe the Kelsey, Kittle, Waller manager doesn't, they're kind of in a rebuild and looking for picks. Can you get maybe give up Freiermuth and get one of those guys for that first?
Then you might as well. If I was this team, I would go try to get Kyle Pitt. Because you're in the middle, you're very balanced. But the thing is, if you go get Kittle, I mean, he's 28 years old, right?
That's cryptocurrency, man. What would Kyle Pitt? What would he have to give up to get Kyle Pitts? Looking at this roster,
more than the first, I'd assume.
I would trade him for another kidney.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. Like to me, this team is like Doc said, it's perfectly ready to play. Like it's perfectly ready, and I guarantee you, is this one of you guys a fan or like is this someone that paid for it? I can't. But anyway, whoever it is, I guarantee you, he's getting trade offer for all his rookies right now.
I'm sure he's getting inundated.
And if I was him, I wouldn't sell any of my rookies until he gets an offer that is mind-blowing. And when I say mind-blowing, it better be draft pick. Actually, it just better be a win-now trade for him. It has to be a win-now trade because that team is ready to win now. You're not getting, give me 2 first and Jalen Waddle for, let's say, Tyreek Hill. No.
Yeah, no.
You don't do that. You keep this team as it is and win that championship.
Not only that, like he's got a chance to win now, and it's not like he's got like a cliff approaching. The way that I see it, it's like he's got a nice young core, and he could just keep rolling with this thing. He doesn't really need to change much of anything. Go cheap at tight end, get yourself a little more depth. If you get an injury in year, maybe somebody's quarterback goes down, maybe you can move one of those guys. You got that first round pick for 2022. I wouldn't touch the 2023 picks at all. Maybe even try to get more of them if you can. But don't spend a lot of capital to get a tight end. Just let it roll. What's that?
So the Steelers, early on, I wanted to ask this question to Kyle and you, Dog, because we see Najee Harris on this team. They released David DeCastro, who was probably one of their best offensive linemen, and it worried me a little bit. I'm like, okay. Is Najee Harris going to block and run the ball at the same time? What the hell happened?
Buy into the dip.
Yeah, and they
you can't get worse than 32nd, right? So
they signed former offensive guard Trey Turner.
Yeah, he used to be with the Panthers. He was pretty good with the Panthers.
He was pretty good. So maybe it was a contract thing with DeCastro. Maybe
Yeah, it was a money thing.
I thought there was also a rumor DeCastro might retire. Like he's not 100% certain. I know I think they're dealing with the injury, right? I think that's because he didn't play well last year, but I think he was also hurt last year. I mean, he missed a lot of time too, but even when he was in, was not the healthiest. So I do wonder if it's just body breaking down and they feel like they can get a bit younger with Turner, but still get a veteran guy with experience. But are you hinting, Gerson, are you hinting at maybe selling Najee Harris?
No, I'm not selling. This team is ready for it. This team has a 3-year window.
But I do wonder, can you get one of those running backs from last year's class? Can you get a Cam Akers? Can you sell Harris and maybe the third and get Akers? I think if that's happening, I think I'm doing that.
I don't know if I would want to. And I'm not hating on Cam Akers, but I'm not so convinced that he's going to shoot off into the stratosphere like everybody thinks. I just want Henderson is still there. There's a lot of pathways to him not being a top 10 running back this year.
Okay, so there's only 3 guys. There's only 2 guys that I have. No, 3 guys that I have ahead of Najee Harris of last year's draft. It's DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and Cam Akers. So unless you're doing it for Antonio Gibson and CH and Dobbin, then maybe. But that's the thing. I tell you guys, this year running back is so hard to rank because you have guys, and this is what I say. These are my top 12 guys. It's Christian McCaffrey 1, Dalvin Cook, Zeke, Barkley, Henry, Cam Akers, Kamara, Taylor, Eckler, Swift, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. And that's going to change because Joe Mixon, what they said that they were going to not have him be a 3-down back or something like that.
Every year.
Yeah, exactly. Like every year. But the thing is, to me, is this. Then you got top 17, right? J.K. Dobbin, Edward-Helaire, Gibson, Chubb, Aaron Jones. That mix is so hard. It's like you in Dynasty, you're like, oh, cool, I got all these running back in 2018, or was it 2018 that draft?
17, I think. Yeah, that one big one with everyone, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you have the top rank, but so much can change. But I think if I'm selling Najee Harris, I'd want Swift. That's the
which might be attainable. I mean,
move. Just play it out. You're not definitively getting better.
Well, the one thing I will say is, if we are worried about the Steelers, then production-wise, it's probably not the best idea to have both Najee Harris and Juju in your lineup. So I think that does lead me to think maybe trading one might be the idea. Swift is kind of viewed as down right now. I wonder if you sell Najee Harris for Swift, if you're getting more on the Swift side. If that's happening, I'm doing that all day. Because I almost think Swift should be ahead of Harris, but because Jamal Williams is there and the Todd Gurley visit, people seem to be a little down on Swift. So I do wonder, maybe a bit of rookie fever there, but you sell Harris to get Swift. Do you get an extra pick back? And then again, that's another pick that you can use to package a couple thirds together to get another player, right? Kind of incremental moves.
I guess here's my question, because we're talking about incremental moves. I get all that. But at the same time, lateral moves and, big risk and low to moderate reward. But, how these things change the narrative. It's the Steelers line was supposed to suck no matter what. So it's so then this guy retires and all of a sudden it's it feels like an overreaction to me. It's everybody was buying Najee Harris and it wasn't scared about this offense at all. And that was knowing that the Steelers' offensive line was garbaggio. And then they lose one guy, it's
not going to make a difference.
Cares, it's
it might even help if he was that again from his play last year.
I think one thing I learned about I think I've done 3 chips. This is my 3rd show with Doc, and I love the way he attacks Dynasty because I have 2 sides of Dynasty. When the way I attack it is the way where I build a 3-year window, and the way I go, all right, I'm going to win now, and I'll worry about the rebuild later. Because that's the way it is. It depends. If I'm in a fantasy league, a dynasty league where it's $250, I want to build my ROI right away. I have 3 years. Okay, I won $250. I won, let's say, $250. I always play 16-team dynasty, guys. Sorry, I don't play 12-team. I don't play 10-team. I love 16-team because you go so deep, and I love that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that because I'm a guy. I don't want to say I love going deep, but but yeah, I love like deep leagues, and that's the thing. Like, there's two ways to build a dynasty team, and this team right here has a 3-year window with those running backs and those wide receivers. Maybe next year, flip Mike Evans for a rookie and keep it more balanced. But he has Devontae Smith. He has very underrated Dynasty Brown. What was it?
I think it's Dynasty Brown.
Dynasty Brown. And then you can, that first round pick. I love this team. And it's just, I think it's built both ways. My way, which is a 3-year window, and it's built Doc's way, win now. So just keep it as it is, like Doc said. I love Doc's opinion on it because that's what I would do. You have Justin Herbert. Like, this guy, you probably got him in free agency in the fab bid, I don't know if they do fab, but whatever. You didn't draft him, I bet you that.
Yeah, and thinking, okay, Cousins, Ryan, right? Okay, eventually he'll take over for them, but he's already there. I do wonder, like, if there's that's I guess another thing we didn't mention. If there's a team that's absolutely desperate for a quarterback, and you can get you throw Cousins in a third and you get a second out of it, like, I'm fine doing something like that, right?
Yeah,
and I think even if you're competing, you can still make moves that increase your value, even if it's away from points. Like, let's say someone is like big on the Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson relationship. They offer you a first for Robbie Anderson straight up. Would you take it, even if you're competing?
First for Robbie. Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. It's like I said, first sounds good, but it's like eventually the first, it has value until you turn it into something. So,
and that's why I'm
turn into.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering. Is it that do you, with a second first round pick, is that something that you can use those 2 first round picks to get a better receiver than Anderson, right? Like the pick is so like.
I'm not willing to. I mean, I get it. I get the point. It's totally well received. I understand what you're saying, but for my thing, it's like I want the guy. I want the player. I want the guy that's going to produce. I don't want to worry about next. It's like you kind of get to a point in Dynasty where sometimes you middle yourself. Where it's like I'm thinking about this year, but I'm thinking about next year, but I'm also thinking about 17 years from now, and it's like. No,
but I am using those first to think about this year, right? Because I think if you again, I don't think you're getting Robbie Anderson for first, but if that trade happens, because I don't think we think that's his value, right? So if someone's desperate enough to give that, I say take it and run with it, and then use that first for a better player that you wouldn't have been able to get with Robbie Anderson from all the other 10 managers.
I just wouldn't do it. I'd rather just have the guy. Just give me the guy this year, give me that production. I don't have to worry about it. Just roll with it. I don't care about the first pick next year. I'll worry about that next year.
I love Doc energy because he reminds me so much of Rick Abano that we have on the Sunday DFS show. Only if Hamid was here, and him and Hamid argue all the time. And Doc, I love it. He's outspoken. I love that.
Wait until we start talking about Jared Goff this year.
Oh my God!
He's going to be wearing a Jared Goff jersey all next year after he loses all those side bets we're going to have.
So I get Kyle's point where he's saying you trade the value of Robbie Anderson, let's say, for first.
Maybe that's not a realistic argument.
Yeah, but let's say you get Robbie Anderson, and then you got the other first, which you're going to be a contending team. You're not going to get a great pick. So take those 2 first and go offer, let's say, Juju, and then go to someone that has, let's say, CeeDee Lamb. Maybe go to the team that aren't competing. Go up to them and say, hey, I have 2 first round picks. I have Juju. What do you think for this player? Let's say it's either CeeDee Lamb, other player. Hell, I would do that for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, but he already had Devontae Smith. I don't think he wants more rookies, but I would want win now talent. Heck, I would probably go say, hey, these 2 first, Robbie Anderson for Michael Thomas. Let's go see. Let's go test the waters out. Wide receivers can win you a championship right now.
Actually, I wonder if that Robbie Anderson in a first for Thomas, especially if the team that has Thomas is kind of not in competitive mode and kind of in rebuild. Anderson, Thomas, same age, but that first might make a difference. I mean, actually, I think Juju and Thomas, you might be able to get sell Juju in the first for Thomas, and maybe get another pick back. That again, you can use that to buy another player. I think we're all agreeing that Thomas is going to probably outproduce Juju.
Allen Robinson is one of the players that. I don't know why people just don't like him. I love Allen Robinson. He produces every year,
Yep.
And I think this year you got him a good quarter. Sorry, Andy Dalton, you're not the number 1 quarterback. You got a good quarterback.
But even if it's Dalton, that's still probably the best quarterback he's ever had, because Dalton's probably better than Trubisky and Bortles and anyone else that's ever thrown him passes. So either way, it's the best quarterback he's ever had, I think.
Did Robinson play with Rex
to your point.
Grossman?
What's that?
Did Robinson play with Rex Grossman? I don't know.
Oh no, he didn't. He got that hole.
I think Dalton's still better though.
I'm just kidding.
I guess Grossman's actually won a playoff game, to be fair.
I apologize.
No, I just think this team is built to win now. Maybe take that draft asset, maybe trade a couple players for draft. I like the strategy Kyle's thinking.
I get it too. And this is the thing I think is really interesting. It's not like there's a wrong answer, Kyle. Yeah. So I'm not saying like, oh, no, your approach is wrong. To a certain extent, there's personal preference too. There are guys that I'm in leagues with that are wheeler dealers. Like they're always making trades. It's like a part-time job for them. I'm like, guys, don't. It's like they're sending these trade offers at 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, what are you doing? Like you guys have families, you have jobs. Like me personally, my personal preference and the way that I play is that I make a couple of moves a year, something that definitely has a point and transitions into things. I'm not really into incremental moves. That's not to say it's wrong. That's just where my bias is and where I come from. And that's why I appreciate having like the round table here, because you get different perspectives. It's not like there's one absolute. There's many different ways to play the game, and they all have value.
And like the thing we have to think about is like in Dynasty, the thing that will kill your roster is injuries right away. You guys remember, and it's crazy because I think I posted this like 2 months ago. Hey, y'all remember when Todd Gurley and David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell were all top 10 picks?
That wasn't that long ago.
Oh, check this out.
3 years ago?
Yeah, what happened?
Like they're all free agent now. What's up?
The injury analyst agrees with you. Injuries are important.
Free agents are worse because David Johnson's on the Texans. But that's the one place we don't want him to be. We'd rather him be a free agent because he has the potential to go somewhere else.
I wonder when he got signed if he was like, well, hold on.
Traded
today.
Yeah. When he got there, he had the whole backfield to himself. Now they got like 17 guys in.
Deshaun Watson is quarterback. Like it's way better than Josh Rosen and these scrubs I've had here. I guess he had Carson Palmer, to be fair.
But no, well, he had Kyler Murray for a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, I guess he did.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like Dynasty is so crazy. The reason why I love Dynasty is because you don't know the way your team's gonna go, and you just have a rebuild. And by the way, Doc, I'm that guy that's going to wake you up at 2 a.m. with a trade alert.
Well, you know what? I'm that guy that's going to be awake. So,
yeah, you got to work tonight, right? Yeah.
10 seconds later, you'd be like, wait, what? I thought he would see it in the morning. It's like, no, I'm awake, dude.
It'll be a good offer.
Seeing everything like an X-ray machine.
That's right. And I'm going to be doing that tonight. I'm going to be up all night. This is like, I'm going to go have breakfast after this, and then I get to go read CAT scans all night. So, I'm just getting warmed up.
Damn. No wonder you work graveyard?
Yeah. I usually work the night shift.
Oh, hey man, I just want to say I appreciate your service, especially during the pandemic year. I mean, it was pretty horrible. Anybody that worked in the hospital field, serving military, police, firemen, all of them, because you guys didn't take a break. And a lot of us were able to take a break. So I really appreciate you going out there and putting your life on the line when I'm a fat ass drinking beers on the show at home.
I really appreciate that, but full disclosure, and that's a great sentiment for me. Like I work out of my house. So the real heroes are the people that were in the emergency room. They were seeing patients and they were putting their lives on the line. They were risking their lives. Our first responders, doctors, nurses, all the ancillary staff, even the secretaries and the office managers that were going in and really putting themselves in harm's way. So it's like I'm here and I was grinding it out, seeing a bunch of COVID cases for a year and a half, but at the same time, I wasn't at the same level of risks. But I really appreciate the sentiment. That means a lot.
Thanks, man. Yeah, dude, it's crazy because I think do we have enough time to talk about the COVID situation with the NFL where players are basically iffy about it, like.
Sure. Yeah. We're almost at an hour and a half, but we can touch on it quickly. So it's like with their new regulations, right?
The new regulation. Like, what is the whole storyline behind it? Like, do you know anything about it, Doc? Like, is it really just the NFL trying to put their foot down, tell the players you got to do it? If not, you're gonna have to sit the game, or what is it?
I think, and I'll try and answer this quickly. If I'm understanding it correctly, it's like they're putting limitations on people that aren't vaccinated, and they're restricted in certain ways. I know Cole Beasley was talking about it a lot. He's probably the most vocal one. But is that what you mean? Like the restrictions?
You can't do
you can't do whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for them, it's a liability issue. I understand personal choice and stuff like that. Obviously, I have a bias, so I'll just share my bias. If you have access to a vaccine and you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. Whatever risks that you can incur from a vaccine are way lower than the risks you can incur if you get COVID. That being said, it's a liability issue. Like, it's a workplace. They have to create a safe workplace. And if somebody doesn't want to get vaccinated, it's really hard to not get exposed. When you're out in public, and this thing is still out there in the United States, and I don't know what the situation exactly is in Canada, Kyle, but we're kind of on the downturn, and
they got free health insurance. So they better all be getting it,
Well, yeah, but I mean, a little slower to get the vaccines out, of course, but it seems like we're in a bit like, getting more vaccines to people, so it is downturning. There's some variants.
So you guys are getting there, but in other areas of the world, this thing is beyond still happening. I mean, there's new variants that are coming out that are really dangerous because people don't have access to the vaccines yet. So it's like it's still a worldwide problem. We're not completely through this thing. But I think the short stories for the NFL is they're kind of covering their ass, which they're really good at, admittedly. They're good at a lot. The covering their own ass is probably
that's what they're best at.
So they have to kind of put these things in place, and it's like, hey, look, here's the deal. Like, it's kind of for your own good. If you don't want to get vaccinated for your own good, then we kind of have to put some stipulations in, and people don't generally they don't like that. But
I'm glad to get this opinion from a doc, because I had an argument about the whole Cole Beasley scene, and I was 50-50. I was like, we can't tell other people what to do with their body, but in a work environment, sometimes we have to be protected.
It's not just him that's at risk. He could get it. Like, here's the thing. Let's play it out. He could get it and be fine, and he can give it to 17 other people and kill somebody's grandma and not know about it. Like, that's the whole thing that was happening last year. I can do what I want to do with my body, but you doing what you want to do with your body is theoretically putting somebody else's body at risk. Yeah. So in an employment setting, you have something to say about that.
And not to get too political, but the U.S. is definitely, a lot of places definitely like to tell other people what to do with their bodies, specifically women, and that has really no effect on anyone else. Maybe effect on one life, but right. So there's already a lot of things in place to kind of already say this is what you have to do. So I think from a fantasy perspective, the only thing in the stipulation that really could be concerning is the fact that if a non-vaccinated player tests positive, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So you're missing 2 games, whereas vaccinated players don't. So that's I think the only risk. But I also do wonder, I'm skeptical of how much testing the NFL is going to do. Because I got a feeling the players aren't going to want to get tested. The coaches and the managers aren't going to want to test their players. I think the NFL is just putting this out there to kind of save face. I don't know how much testing is actually going to get done. I don't
know either. I mean, it's easy enough to administer. It's easy enough to do. It's not a real cost for them. I think, again, thinking about liability, if it turns out that they say they're testing and they're not testing and somebody turns out positive and somebody dies, or gets really sick or whatever, I mean, that's that's a civil lawsuit waiting to happen. I'm not a lawyer, but it just seems like it's something that's relatively easy to do and it's not cost, prohibitive. So I think they're probably still going to. They might not do it as rigorously and with as many people as they did, last year because of the difference in context, but
they did very good last year. They did really good last year. I mean, I remember 2 situations where I had to tell my league, all right, give me your practice play. Give me your
replacement player.
Give me your COVID replacement in case the guy gets deactivated.
Yeah, before the game starts, blah, blah, blah. Because there was a Cam Newton week, there was a Kansas City Chief, and then there was
the whole Ravens guy.
The Kamara on the airplane sat next to someone, and then I thought that was ridiculous because I'm like, dude, you're on an airplane. You know how much space limited you have to not be touching something, and let me be honest here. When you're walking through an aisle, you touch at least 20 feet, or you're right next to someone, you're feeling that moist and everything, dude, There's 40 football players. You're not going to tell me there's 20 offensive linemen that weigh like 350 pounds and just sweating and stuff. Then you got Alvin Kamara next to the fullback. I'm like, how the hell did nobody else get COVID?
All the airborne in the world isn't going to, and vitamin C in the world isn't going to protect you from that.
Yeah, I think the NFL handled it pretty well last year. I think this year they're just trying to cover their asses for liability, like Doc said, and that's understandable. I mean, it's just, and the other thing that I would like, a lot of players like Zeke, he had COVID, and last year he didn't do so well. I think COVID, people take it like it's a joke, but like there's a lot of professional athletes that got COVID. Cam Newton after COVID, he sucked.
Von Miller talks about it.
Von Miller, like this.
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. There might have been one of the few teams that it seems like they got it in. Like he was fine, like he was running well after, but that almost seems like the exception more than the rule.
Mark Andrews said something about that. James Conner, came out. A lot of these guys were probably negatively affected. So we'll have to see. It's really interesting. And of course, there's Ryquell Armstead, who really had
the biggest case.
Fortunately, he's okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he's actually we're talking about Devontae Booker. Ryquell Armstead's on that team too. Maybe it's not so cut and dry that Booker's like I think Booker's more talented than Armstead, but do the Giants think that, right? So
it's interesting. He could be involved in the split there because the other thing is Ryquell Armstead is kind of the reason that James Robinson's a thing now because he was supposed to be the guy, and then he got COVID and had a really bad go of it. And then they pivoted to James Robinson after that.
I just put it in my heart already because check this out. I had one roster spot available in my 16-team Dynasty, and I was like, all right. And I drafted James Robinson, and then I'm like, I don't think he's the guy. So I went and picked up Ryquell Armstead.
Oh, well, you know what? Good process, but bad results. A good process, bad results do not invalidate a good process.
So don't drop running backs to pick up more running backs. Drop a receiver instead. That was the lesson from that.
There you go.
So just to quickly close this conversation, I do think the problem in that I don't know how much we can actually take away from fantasy because is the NFL going to put out a list of which players are vaccinated and which aren't? Because okay, we know Cole Beasley isn't, but how many other players aren't?
Feels like that's a HIPAA thing, so it's like almost assuredly they're not going to give that information out.
And I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of stuff with injuries that are probably HIPAA violations that, for betting purposes, get put out injury reports every week, right? I think
players help disclose some of this stuff that invalidates a lot of the HIPAA stuff that they
because and I think it's part of their contracts too. But I don't know if the COVID part of that collective bargaining agreement. I know it got signed last year, but so. If they never put out a list of this, I don't know how we can use it because we can downgrade Cole Beasley if we want, but what other players have that same risk that we don't know about that we aren't downgrading? So
we don't know.
If we have incomplete information, I'd rather just not use it at all. So that's my thing. And Beasley's pretty cheap anyway, so it's not like he can go down much in price.
I think that's really valid. Like it's not something that we want to overrate. You just got to listen. It's kind of an individualistic thing. Like, if the player discloses that he's not vaccinated, then he's at higher risk for the reasons that you said. But not knowing any of that, just not a factor. Just assume, just like in football, everybody's at risk just by the nature of the activity.
Beasley will be fine. He had the rap career.
He's also made millions, and even if he doesn't have a rap career, I think he'll still be fine. I think that's one of the things he's mentioned in those posts too. If he doesn't die
from COVID, he'll be great.
Gabriel season, baby. Gabriel Davis season, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Emmanuel Sanders.
I'm still hoping for Duke. I'm still hoping for Duke Williams, but probably not. But anyway, hopefully this was a good episode for you. The person who submitted the roster. Hopefully we gave you some good trade ideas, or the lack of trade ideas, maybe in terms of how that team sets out. But hopefully everyone did enjoy this. Gerson, as the guest, do you want to let the people know where they can find and follow you?
Yeah, and I also want to put out an idea that I'm thinking of. So everybody loved the Scott Fishbowl and everything. This year, I'm still 50-50, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it because I'm trying to brainstorm with Jeff going for two. I'm probably going to do a ranking spreadsheet for DFS, Daily Fantasy Sports, every week, and I'm just going to ask people to tip whatever they want. I'm going to say $1. You get it, you get access to it, and it's all going to go to it. Whatever, charity, Scott Fishbowl does, or either people out there in the fantasy community. Shout out to Scott. His daughter had leukemia, and like just stuff like that. Like I really just want to give back because, I mean, we have knowledge. We might as well use it and make it valuable, you know. And that's one of the ideas. I'm always on the show every Friday on the Armchair Fantasy Show for the DFS show. On Sunday morning, I'm with Gladys, Jerry Riccabano. I think that's his last name. And then the wonderful Hamid that's not here. We do the DFS show. I do the DFS part. But yeah, you can catch me then. I'll be on the Gladys. I'll be on Gladys show on July 12th. So I'll see you guys then.
Nice.
Effort.
I hope you're bringing a 12-pack.
Oh, I don't know, man. We'll see.
Pyramid. So yeah, I'm Kyle Senra on Twitter at Senra Says. Dr. James Freddy, he's at TFS Doc, the fantasy sports doc, for that abbreviation. I know it's always useful to me. What's it again? Oh yeah. And as well as the Dynasty Gambit, I also host press coverage, which is normally on Mondays. However, in July, a few things came up, and actually both July episodes will be on Fridays. So the next press coverage will be July 5th. I actually already have guests lined up for that. It's Casey Kasem. So looking forward to that. And actually, next Monday, I will be on Gladys's show, similar to Gerson on the 12th. I'll be joining Gladys on the 28th here to talk about the Scotch Fish Bowl a little bit and some other topics. So
I'm really looking forward to that. G, thanks for joining us. Kyle, thanks for hosting. Hamid, thanks for nothing, for bailing on us in the last 2 hours.
He gave us the teams and the good questions and the not so good questions.
We love you. We miss you. We hope your family's doing well. Give our love to your nephew and your family. And we're weekly now, so we look forward to getting the gang back together next week. For those of you that are interested in injury analysis, check out my book. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. It's available on Amazon. There's a link on my Twitter page at TFSDoc.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And as these guys start playing and practicing, injuries are going to happen, and we talked about it a lot. Injuries are really important, really underestimated. How your team can go from haves to have-nots. So how to mitigate that and how to have a lot more success in fantasy. I think you guys will find it really helpful. And that's it. Doc's getting ready to go to work.
Yeah, we're signing out here for the Dynasty Gambit on behalf of Dr. Freddy and on behalf of Gerson. Again, Kyle Senra here. Thank you all for watching the Dynasty Gambit.
Thanks, guys.